First, we heard that Thailand is stuck in the middle income trap for quite some time, over a decade already, but we ambitious to be a high income country.
Thailand wishes to become a high-income country by 2037. Is Thailand ready to do that jump? You would imagine that throughout time, all of the countries that were low middle-income countries will become high middle-income countries and eventually high-income countries. Well, that's not the case. A group of 113 countries who were only a handful became high-income countries, a little over 10.
Since we think that approximately 100 countries that still trapped in the middle income trap, what are the key elements that these countries lack?
I think if I had to summarize it into one sentence, is the strength put forward a series of structural reforms.
เรามักจะได้ยินกันบ่อยๆนะครับว่าประเทศไทยนั้นเป็นประเทศที่ติดกับดักรายได้ปานกลางนะครับหรือว่า middle income trap นะครับแต่ว่าเราอาจจะไม่ค่อยได้มาหยิบมาขบคิดนะครับแล้วประเทศที่ก็บอกว่ารายได้สูงเนี่ยมันเป็นเท่าไหร่แล้วบ้านเราเป็นเท่าไหร่แล้วมันมีตัวอย่างไหมครับของประเทศที่เขาเรียกว่าประเทศกำลังพัฒนาที่สามารถก้าวข้ามผ่านประเทศที่มีรายได้ปานกลาง middle income ไปสู่ high income นะครับวันนี้ครับถือว่าเป็นโอกาสที่ดีนะครับที่เราจะได้คุยนะครับกับทางด้าน country manager นะครับของธนาคารโลกหรือว่า World Bankประจำในประเทศไทยนะครับคุณ Fabrizio Zarcone สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio.
Grazie, un piacere stare qui.
Grazie.
Thank you very
First,
much.
we heard that Thailand is stuck in the middle income trap for quite some time, over a decade already, but we are pretty ambitious to be a high income country. Can you give us the overview? What is the definitions and what are the elements of high income country?
Sure. This definition of middle income trap or middle income trap from middle income countries, it's an interesting slogan at the end of the day that us economists have created in the past. But it's an extremely useful concept because it represents a way to push countries towards becoming high income country, towards improving their economic and social policies. So to be frank with you, there is not a strict definition of middle income trap. And that's why I will try to explain with a series of policies and strategies that countries have to put in practice in order to become high income countries. Now, if we want to go with the strict definition of a high income country, a high income country is a country that has a GDP per capita of around a little less than $14,000.
14,000?
Yes, but that's the strict definition. What we are looking when we wish countries to get out of the so-called middle income trap is to put in place a series of policies that at the end of the day allow long-term growth and particularly the well-being of the citizens of that country. And that's, as a World Bank, the way we see it. Now, if we had to define some of the policies that would allow a country to get out from a situation where it is stuck in a way and move forwards, we should focus a lot on first of all, on the macroeconomic stability. This is extremely important because this is the basis that will allow then a series of other policies, be them economic policies or social policies. The other one is also the good governance in general that is required. And this is a very wide concept that can go with a strong civil and efficient civil service that will allow the enactment of public policies, for example, but also control of corruption, civil and political rights, but also the efficiency of the markets. A market needs to be transparent. A market has to have a series of rules that allow the country to put in practice public and private investments, to allow social policies to flourish, and then ultimately, and I would like to stress this, ultimately is to have people well-being, people better off by getting out of this sort of trap and growing progressively and increasing their incomes.
Well, since you have been with the World Bank for, I think, over 2 decades,
Yes.
you have been around several countries, including those who are less developed, developing country, and developed country. Which of the countries that you think should be the testimonial case for a country from middle income trap into developed or high income country?
Let me share a couple of experiences. I think the most relevant one is from the years that I spent in Central America. I spent several years working for both El Salvador and Costa Rica, but I think that in the case of Thailand, Costa Rica is an interesting example. Costa Rica is not a high-income country yet, but it's quite close to it. Yes.
How much is the GDP per capita
I
for Costa
think
Rica?
it's around 12,000.
Really?
Yes.
Thailand is around 7,000.
Yes, I know. It's. I think many countries can learn a lot from this very small country. Costa Rica has made a very interesting choice. By constitution, the country has decided to devote 7% of the GDP to both education, so 7% to education sector and 7% to health. How is it going to finance this? By eliminating military spending. We are in a strange world in this moment where actually there is a run to military spending. This country went throughout the past 20, 25 years exactly in the opposite direction. But this allows them to do a high level of spending in creating the human capital that is needed. And when you look at the life expectancy, which I think is over 80 years, this gives you an immediate idea that human capital is working pretty well there. And there is another aspect that I would say that is extremely important to Thailand. They are both a tropical country. They rely enormously on tourism. Costa Rica has decided, because of the fragility of its environment, where 52% of the territory is covered in forests, to push sustainability of the tourism sector and also to catch the upper echelons of the tourists. So usually the tourist that visits Costa Rica has a high income, which can be spent in the facilities and environment that Costa Rica has been able to preserve. So I think this could be an interesting example for Thailand, where tourist plays such an important role and working better into ensuring that the sustainability of the sector, and that has all a series of environmental elements that need to be developed by Thailand, and therefore ensuring that high levels of incomes collected through the tourism sector.
Well, can I ask you one question? It seems that many countries, almost all the upper middle income like Thailand, we are very ambitious to move up. Can you give us some examples of how many countries in the world that countries of the middle income can move up into developed country?
You would imagine that throughout time, all of the countries that were low middle income countries will become high middle income countries and eventually what we call developed countries. Or high-income countries. Well, that's not the case. In the last, I think, I don't want to make a mistake, but I think that in the last 20, 25 years, among the countries who were a group of 113 countries who were low middle-income countries, only a handful became high-income countries, little over 10. I think 13 or 14. So that
113.
Yes. Wow. That shows you that is not such a simple thing to move up, because it is really the focus on on good policies and good objectives of a country and the well-being of its citizens, promoting growth, promoting equality, promoting technology, promoting all the necessary reforms that will allow a country to become high income. It's very easy to move from low middle income to middle income or upper middle income because few reforms can give great results. But it's always the last mile that it becomes the most complicated one.
Okay.
That's a bit what is happening, and that's why countries like Thailand or Malaysia or other neighbors here are struggling to become high income. Not that they don't have the possibilities. I am always surprised by the impressive work that Thailand has done in the past 20 years. It's amazing how the country has lifted so many millions of people out of poverty. It is amazing what we see in Bangkok, what we see in other mid-sized cities, how many people moved from the rural sector to the manufacturing, the level of exports of the country or the tourism. But there is a lot to be done yet in order to push everything up towards becoming a fully developed country.
Since we think that approximately 100 countries that still trapped in the middle income trap, what are the key elements that these countries lack to push themselves to reach that ambitious goal of high income countries?
Yeah. I think if I had to summarize it into one sentence, is the strength to put forward a series of structural reforms.
Structural reforms.
Structural reforms, absolutely. And if I can elaborate a bit on this, I would say that the most important one is probably the one that boosts human capital.
Okay.
Thailand today is going through a very important transformation. There is a green transformation. There is a new manufacturing. Thailand has been relying a lot on the global value chain, on the manufacturing of vehicles. Now we are in a new era where EVs are going to be the future. Is Thailand ready to do that? To do that jump? And human capital is fundamental. This means a strong reform of the education sector. An education sector reform that starts from the very first years of the kids and accompany men and women of this country throughout their working life. This means ensuring them primary and secondary education, but then giving them at university the necessary skills. So to give them actually the foundational skills at the very beginning, the capacity to interrelate, the capacity to do accounting, the capacity of learning other skills. That's what you learn at the very beginning of your life. And then the technical skills that are needed to make them employable, not only simply employable, but also with high value added, in order for them to get higher incomes and then ensure their well-being. Thailand wishes to become a high-income country by 2037.
Which means 14 years away from now.
Well, yes, tricky, particularly given the growth rate that we are experiencing in these days, which is a little above 3%. In order to become a high-income country by 2037, Thailand should grow at a long-term rate of around 5%. Will it be able to do it? We are not sure. There is another thing that is important. Thailand should increase or double the level of both public and private investment during those years. Basically, for all the 14 years, and by keeping a level of productivity that corresponds to the one that Korea had when Korea had the GDP level of Thailand today. While Thailand clearly became stronger, much stronger from the macroeconomic point of view, it has not enacted those reforms in the education sector, for example, that are going to give that from which we would reap the benefits today if they had been enacted, because we would have a class of workers that have skills, capacities, abilities, innovation that grasp in these days to find in Thailand. The capacity to generate innovation, the capacity to embrace technology, a great degree of openness. Thailand not always has shown, well, those characteristics that have allowed Korea to bloom.
What is the definition of your openness? This interests me quite a lot.
Openness, openness, it's clearly a very wide concept. It's openness of markets, allowing competition, allowing competition to flourish, eliminating special interests, eliminating all constraints and obstacles, for example, for the free trade. It is true that Thailand exports 60% through it's an export-led economy, but at the same time, the innovation, the information, the innovative ideas that can come from outside not always reach Thailand properly and are not exploited properly. There is an underlying conservatism that is good to maintain stability, which is greatly appreciated by investors, but sometimes that can hamper disruption and innovation that we have seen in other countries that have become high-income countries.
Well, since you are responsible not only for Thailand, but also some other countries in ASEAN, including Malaysia, where people think, well, their GDP per capita has exceeded 10,000 already. What should we look at Malaysia? What should we pay specific attention to Malaysia, the country with a population of less than 40 million people, but their GDP per capita is significantly better than Thailand?
But I don't think that Thailand should necessarily look at Malaysia as an example. Malaysia has its own peculiarities. If we look, for example, at the energy sector, it is true that in this moment, Malaysia is faring also well in terms of economic growth. And therefore, we would think that we are worse off. But it is also due to the current economic situation. Malaysia is an export of natural gas. And we know about the price of natural gas in this moment. Thailand doesn't do that. And that's why where I would go is actually looking at Thailand itself. About what Thailand can do, about the many, the wealth of its population, its environment, and the potential skills that the country has in order to become a high-income country. And there are good examples. I think that Thailand is working closely with OECD countries to adopt a series of reforms that will allow that degree of openness that we were talking about earlier, and become a player. Thailand has an amazing geographical location at the center of Southeast Asia that could allow also to be a champion and an example in several sectors. But how Thailand is going to embrace, for example, the green growth agenda or the energy transition agenda. It has all the numbers, all the skills in order to do that. but it needs a little push, and not always politics is keen to embark in these reforms, because status quo is often better for certain people than actually higher risk in order to create, to innovate, to make changes in the economy and in the society. But and then there is a very important thing that differentiates these countries from Thailand, and it's the old age. So the demographic factor
Aging society
is
matters.
the aging society is fundamental because it will affect also people, the number of people that face the new innovative sectors. There will be less and less people to do that. In addition to that, an aging society needs more resources, and this is where fiscal policy becomes a very important factor in order to first boost investments, particularly on the public sector, but also to provide those services that the old age people in old age are in need for, including social protection systems.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned about fiscal policy, monetary policy is important, and also fiscal policy matters a lot in this period of time for Thailand.
Absolutely.
And when you mentioned about the stability of economics in Thailand, how do you, as a representative of World Bank, see economic stability in Thailand, our monetary policy as well as our fiscal policy after COVID-19?
Now, all that is fantastic. Is it good for the future? Well, probably on the monetary side, yes. On the fiscal, we are not there. Why? Thailand wants to become a high-income country. Usually, tax collections in Thailand in the past years, 2021, was around 20%, 21, 22% of the GDP. Structural peers, China, Korea, Indonesia, have a tax collection of around 31%.
Really? I never noticed. 21 against 31.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
OECD countries
Okay.
have 41% on average.
Okay.
So, what does it mean? They collect more resources to boost public investment, to boost all those reforms that will allow then the private sector to flourish, that will allow education to permeate the masses, the people, the rural, agricultural policies that allow productivity to increase. All these things are done through both public and private investment. So you need money. You need resources for that. Okay. Health system that are going to accompany the old age population. So all these things, for all these things, you need resources. And how? It's feasible. It's not magic, and it can be done. Again, it needs bold ideas. Now, on the fiscal side, keeping the VAT at 10% doesn't seem anything shocking. It's a very good policy to do it. And yes, well, it should go up to 10.
Okay.
And it would liberate more resources. Do you know in the euro area, in 90% of the European countries, what is the average VAT?
17? Something
No,
like?
20.
Really?
So I think there is quite a margin. I don't want Thailand to apply a VAT of 20%, but 20 could be a good size that would allow the collection of additional resources. Then eliminating exceptions, loopholes on the VAT side, but also on the income tax collection side. There are too many exceptions. And therefore, by eliminating those exceptions, you broaden the base for tax collection of incomes and you collect more. So practically, with these two measures plus property tax, which should be something that needs to be taken in consideration in a package, exactly, then you can increase resources of 3-4%, additional 3-4%, and reaching around 25% in terms of tax collection, which is nothing really amazing. In the region, I think it's around 30-31%, the average. China is 31%. I think Indonesia must have something similar. So it's nothing amazing, but that 3-4% additional would allow a lot of margin of maneuver to the government for proper spending. And then there is also the other side, to be efficient in the current spending. Social protection measures have been blanketed to all the quintiles, from the richest to the poorest. Well, maybe it's time to target the social spending only for the ones who are most in need. So, meaning the poorest, the quintiles of the population. And that would allow savings that could be spent also to promote economic development, economic growth, the social development, and so on and so forth.
So I come to last questions. Due to the fact that Thailand is now in the election modes, we have new government. As World Bank is a big organization in the world, what will be your remarks for the new era of Thailand? Should Thailand want to move and to keep our promise? In the next 14 years, we will be high income. What should be your final remark?
The final remark would be boost education in all levels. This is the basic for everything. Give the fundamental skills to the people, and the Thai will flourish automatically.
Fundamental skills, can you elaborate that a bit further?
Well, it starts from the fundamental skills of the kids when they are in the very first phase of the learning, and progressively provide them with the knowledge that is de-linked with the traditions and with the curricula that were applied in the past. So give it a boost of innovation to it, and reduce the learning gaps. Nowadays, there are many kids in Thailand who are unable at the age of 15 to properly read a text or to properly comprehend a text. And these are the latest PISA score. I don't remember the details, but it's shocking. So eliminate this. Give them opportunities. At the end of the day, education is what is going to give people equality of opportunities. We don't want a blanket equality, but Thailand should look for the equality of opportunities from the rural areas to the urban areas. And this is done through the knowledge, to the acquisition of skills that are going to give them the jobs of the future.
วันนี้ต้องขอบคุณนะครับ Well, thank you very much once more. The
A
country
pleasure.
manager of the World Bank, Mr. Fabrizio Zarcone. Thank you very much.
ขอบคุณครับ everyone.
ฝากกดติดตาม กดไลค์ กด Subscribe กดกระดิ่งช่วยเตือนไม่ให้พลาดทุกข่าวสารดีๆ จาก The Standard World กันนะครับ